Hi everyone, it's Lori, and today's episode is some wow, easy editing using a couple different programs and editing styles. But first, I did want to show you my setup. I was doing a flat lay setup using a piece of white poster board. I was using some ferns from my garden. You could use this setup with any subject. Now, what you want to make sure you do is have filtered light. So your light, I have this on the floor in front of a door, but I do have a diffuser diffusing the light to prevent the shadows. All right, so we're going to jump in and talk about how I edited these multiple images in some creative ways. Okay, so now I've brought the images that I shot using the white background. I also used a dark background, so I'll show you those images as well. And what I want to do is just show you my favorites, and then we're going to jump into editing. And I'm going to really show you how you can take one subject, shoot in a couple different ways, and edit in some very easy methods to get some different looks. Stay tuned for the end of the video. I'm going to show you an amazing, free, fun, easy tool to remove your backgrounds. So stay tuned for that one. Okay, this was that first scene. I shot the ferns in this pattern. I also shot them in this pattern with a little bit more ferns and a little more whimsy. I think both of these turned out okay. My shadows are very minimal. This is where I did have the diffuser in front of my light source. And this is that second one. Now this needs some work and we can edit this one together. But overall, I think it works okay. All right, the next two that I did want to show you, I actually took one of the ferns and I placed it in a small little vase to hold it, and I put it against a dark background. And then I played around with it. What I noticed, I loved the back of the fern, I loved the shapes of the ferns and the leading lines. So this was a option not on a flat lay, and I knew right away I wanted to convert it to black and white. So the light is really hitting, and this is just natural light in my little studio. It was hitting the ferns here. So if I go to edits, I really only had to do some basic exposure. I did underexpose the image when I shot it, so that's before. So I just opened up the whites to get that final look, and then just did some basic edits. Not a lot had to be done to this image. So I think it's just a good example of, you might see something when you're shooting, but always think, could it look nice in black and white if you enjoy black and white photography? Okay, the next, I guess the third version of this fern, I decided while I had it set up to do some intentional camera movement. Now, I know some of you out there don't love intentional camera movement. Others of you really love the abstract painted look. I think for these ferns, it works really nicely. So again, this was before. So whenever you bring an ICM image into your editing software, don't just throw it away. Sometimes it just needs a little bit. Usually it needs a little contrast, which I added. I also did increase the whites, and I did pop the black. So that was before, and I brought it down. Typically when you shoot ICM, unless you're using filters, you may overexpose part of the subject. And so when I come back to editing, I just lower those blacks, add some contrast. I did do a tone curve mid adjustment. So let me reset that and show you. Over here on the tone curve, I put a point in the middle and just brought that down, which gives the scene a little kind of moodiness. And that's basically all I had to do with this image as well. Now there's some other cleanup I could do, but I'm really happy with it. And again, that was the before. So grabbing a couple ferns from my garden, or you can actually get dried ferns at various craft stores. You can order them off Amazon. It's a great subject to play with. You also could get ferns from your local grocery store. They use them in arrangements, and I know they will sell just a couple to you that you can then play with inside. So again, this was the image on the floor with the white background, and I also had this version. All right, so let's jump into editing. And I think the first edit we'll do is let's edit on this image. It actually looks really nice. There's probably some cleanup I need to do. But for this image, I actually decided to try it in black and white. So as I came over and converted it to black and white, I did open up the shadows, but I did a big temperature and tint adjustment. So let me take those back and show you. So when you convert to black and white, you always want to look. Now I knew that this image, it's green. So what I want to do is actually make the tint more on the green side, which is going to give it a little bit more accuracy. I also wasn't sure if I wanted it on that. It's kind of got a blue tint. You may not see it on your screen. So I actually moved the tint over to warm it up a little bit. So there's the before green, and green is going to cast. You can see some of that yellow light on that right upper fern. You can see the shadow and the warm light. And then of course converting it to black and white. So those were some of the basic adjustments. I did add some texture to the image. And let's look at our mask. So this is where this part of the fern was very bright. And so I just added a mask and brought down the exposure in that one area. Now, my background is pretty white, but I could make some adjustments to it. So let's go ahead and do a mask, select background. And as it's processing, selecting your background, it usually works pretty good. Let's check this out. Yeah, it worked nice. Now there's some gaps right here, but since it's all on white, all I'm wanting to do is just increase the whites really to make it pop. I'm going to bring down the highlights on the whites a little bit. You could even do a tone curve. I just really want those whites overall to be nice and clean and sharp. So I think they look pretty good. This side may be a little bit darker, but for our purposes today, and I'm not going to print this image, it's really just for fun. I think this works. So I'm happy with it. So here's before and here's after. So I find anytime you shoot on white, you want to work with your background. And again, stay tuned for the end of the video. I'm going to show you an easy way to convert and make a true white background, not using Photoshop. So we'll come back to that in just a minute. Okay, so that was that image. I just felt like it would look really nice in black and white, and I wanted to move forward with it that way. All right, let's jump over to this image, and we're going to edit it together, and then we're going to take it into Photoshop because I actually did a LAB color inversion, color mode change to create this image, and I absolutely love it. It almost looks kind of like an infrared image. So let's edit this one together today, and then we'll jump into the final section of the video. Super quick, I'm going to give you that great tool. Okay, so for this image, again, I did some basics, opening up the highlights, opening up the shadows, opening up the whites. So just some general adjustments. And I did add some texture and clarity. I do think for the shadows, I want to open those up a little bit more. It seems just a little bit dark. All right, so I masked the background, and what I did there is just increase the exposure to make that white. So that same trick that I did in the last is what I would do here. Okay, now you could continue. We could do a subject mask, and that's going to allow us to come in. Let's see how it did. It did a pretty nice job. So we could open up the shadows a little bit more on our subject. I think that looks nice and opens those up just a little bit and brings out some of that detail. Now you could decide if you want to darken the blacks on the subject. I think that also is nice. I'm going to open up those shadows just a little bit more. Okay, so I think that's it. Shooting images on a white surface, if you get your light right, which is the trick, I think it's harder than actually shooting, you typically don't have a lot of editing, which is great. That's the great news. All right, so for this image, I decided I wanted to try it in black and white as well. So let's just go ahead, and I'm just going to use the standard Adobe black and white. We're going to convert it, but then we need to make some tweaks to it. So always when you convert, you're going to need to change some things. So first, again, is that tint. I know that this image, it's green. It's got a lot of green in it. I'm also going to come down to the black and white mixer, and we are going to either darken or open up those greens. I think for this example, I want to darken them just a little bit. And then otherwise, because we'd already made our other adjustments, I think everything else is pretty good. Maybe open up the whites just a little bit. And actually, I'm really, really happy with this image. Convert it. I think it looks really nice. So I could leave it like this, but I decided I wanted to take it into Photoshop. I'm going to darken the blacks just a little bit. I wanted to take it into Photoshop and try playing with, let's go ahead and edit in Photoshop, play with LAB color mode to give it that inverted look. Now, the way LAB color mode works is you invert your blacks and your whites. So you have to think about that. Not every image does it work with, but I think for this image, hopefully it's gonna work really nice. So let's convert, duplicate our background layer, which actually we did need to do. So sorry about that. You wanna just, if you duplicate it, you can turn off your background. So we've got this layer here. Now you're gonna go up to image mode and select lab LAB color. Now LAB color mode, I have several videos on it. Basically it's a larger color space, and so it's allowing you to do some different things, and it works in channels. So yeah, we didn't need both of these layers. Okay, so let's go to image mode, make sure it worked. It did. It's in LAB color mode. The other way you know that is when you go to your channels. You have a lightness and an AB channel. What we want to do is just click on the lightness. Now, we're not done here. The most important step is you go back to image adjustments and you want to invert. So you're going to invert this layer. There we go. Now you can click on the top to get all the channels present. From here, I usually go ahead and convert the image back before I do any other adjustments to it. So let's go ahead and go back to image mode, and I'm going to take it back to RGB. It's as easy as that, you guys. So now we can click on layers. We're back to our RBG. You can see right here, instead of the AB channel, we have our red, green, blue, which is standard, and we're going to go back to layers. So now we've got our regular layers. From here, you can make any adjustments you want. You can do a curves adjustment. You can do masking, really anything that you feel like works. Now, sometimes where the white was, you may not get some of the black. So you'll notice right here, there's a little kind of weird light coming through. So what I'm gonna do is grab the clone tool, and I'm just gonna come in, grab the option, hit the Option or Alt key to select this target area, and then let's just duplicate this layer. I'm gonna select the option, and I'm just gonna come in and mimic the fern right in front of it. Just kind of come through. Now, if you get something weird, you just start over. Sometimes that happens. I'm just gonna kind of click through here. That last one didn't look too good. And sometimes you need to get a smaller brush, but the clone tool works perfect for this. Now, you could add black here where the light is coming through. Let's make the brush smaller. You could come in and paint that. But what I find is it actually, I don't know, that one may look okay. You could also use the clone tool and not worry about making it. You don't want to have like little brush strokes coming through. So what I prefer to do, again, is just use the clone tool. So we're still on it. And I think for right here, I'm going to use this as my target because it's kind of light. And I'm just going to come in. Let's just use this right beside it. I'm just going to come in and make some more leaves right here. And then you could also reduce that if you don't want it to look so copied. what we can do is come over and target here. And since we used the clone tool in this particular area, what we can also do again is that blend mode. So let's just lower it, and that looks a lot more real. So not as stark and stand out. But I think if you turn it off, you see those bright white areas, and we just want to minimize those. So I think we did a good job. There's a little bit here. You could also grab a light colored gray brush and modify those. But overall, I think the effect is really beautiful, and you don't have to do a lot of editing. I love how the light came through from our original image, and then you've got your dark points. So I think it's really beautiful. Now, if you needed to do a brightness contrast adjustment, you could absolutely do that. So if you wanted to reduce the brightness, and you could also even mask that on. So you guys need to know, you know how to do all those edits. You can also take this final, once you've inverted it or converted it to LAB, you can take it right back into Lightroom and do all your adjustments. So we're just going to click File, Save. It will take our image right back into Lightroom. I have the one that I did earlier. You can see where I kind of cloned and masked. And now you can make any adjustments you need to. I think I brought down the highlights just a little bit. If you wanted to modify those whites, you could. But I think it's just a fun alternative. And again, we had our original image. And here it is in the green. Kind of boring now that we see this dramatic change with that inversion. So that's the LAB color. All right, you guys, so one image shot multiple ways using a variety of camera techniques, and then edited in a variety of ways, from your basic edit to black and white to the LAB color mode. Now, I often get asked, someone says, I can't get my background white enough and it's got some color, like there's color coming through. So you can always work with your background in Photoshop, but I want to show you my magic new tool. Okay, so I'm here in Canva. Canva is canva.com. You can get a free program. And what you want to do is go to Design. And let me get back to home so I can show you. You do Create a Design. And I typically like to just do an Instagram post. It's going to just give you a square white surface. So if you need portrait, you can do that. You can also go to resize. So you could change it to portrait, landscape, whatever size you want, but I usually just start with this white square. Okay, next what we want to do is we are going to, let me go to my file. And so create a design, Instagram square, it's going to load. And you can do this with the free version. All right, next we want to go to uploads. Now this is where you can upload your file. So when you click on upload, you can upload your file if you have it saved on your computer or your hard drive. You can also just drag it in. Okay, so I'm going to start with this image. Now this is the direct image that we had just looked at, but what I want you to see is look at all this color. Once it's actually on a white surface, you can see this bleed at the bottom. So I really want this to be stark white, especially if you're going to do any work that you want to print on white with a white matte, or if you're doing something commercial, you're really going to want this color down here at the bottom. See all that color that came out? I'm not sure where the magenta came from, but we want to get rid of that. So let me show you the magic of Canva. So all we're going to do, let me go back. We've got our upload, and I don't need to upload, so we're going to close out of that. We're going to click on our image, and we've got edit, and you've got one that says background remover. Now sometimes background remover pops up on your screen, but click background remover and it's going to instantly, look at that, remove it. So now when we do this, look, there is a seamless transition. There is no color. Everything is on a white background. It is crisp, it is clean, it is ready to go. So again, super easy. Let's just add a page and I'll show you a second one. Let's go to my uploads and let's just click this one. I brought it in. You can see some of that shading, and I'm just going to click edit, background remover. It processes, and then again, it is super, super clean. So it's an amazing way. If you shoot on white, don't worry about editing for all the little bits of dust, for all the color cast. Just bring it into Canva and change your background, and it will get rid of it, and you'll be on a white surface. Now, if I wanted this to be on a colored surface, I could also do that. So you can also change your background, but if you're really looking to get a clean white image, that is your option. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed exploring all the different ways to shoot and photograph and edit one subject. And I think this is just a great activity for anyone, any time of year. And I hope you liked it, and I'll see you next Sunday.